My 7-year-old World Without Men video, certainly a classic, one that I can owe meeting a vast majority of you on my channel. But occasionally I get one clown who, in my opinion, may have some weird internalized anger issues, I guess, that lead them to turn something that's perfectly fine, perfectly healthy, such as that story, which is simply me talking about how I'm grateful that on a day that I lost power, there's people who are out there to restore it, and how I cannot get along with females who do not have an appreciation for that type of thing, right? Well, for some reason, there's an occasional clown who feels compelled to take that and just make it deeper than it needs to be, and I don't understand why. But I can still appreciate it because I'm someone who likes to go deep myself. That story, by me stating that, say, because I tend to not feel disdain toward men, no matter how deep my daddy issues go, I cannot get along with a lot of females because they just inherently want to hate all men, and I don't agree with that premise. But I had an individual go, "Now go stand at your kitchen sink and turn on the water." I get it. Water as a utility, when I was growing up, I always deemed it more useful and necessary than power, because I used to think, okay, power, I need it so I can get by playing video games during a storm, right? But of course, running water is the better utility because with it you can do sanitary things, and I'm not going to enumerate the things that water is helpful for. And my mom is the one who taught me that that utility has more value. But when you think about now versus decades ago, in order for that stuff to function, it seems like you cannot have one without the other. Because you guys know that I like to think critically, I take a clown like this, who also added, "Men made that happen and you would be unalive in a week after water stops coming out of your faucet," which is false, because I do have experience living in a house that did not have running water, and I'm here, as you can see. That's a lot more necessary than electricity. I like to take an individual like this who clearly has a narrow way of looking at things, and I simply said, okay, thank God that I, as somebody who lives in a city, the water treatment plant that makes that water that comes out of your little ass faucet safe to use does not use electricity at any stage of the water treatment process. That plant exists on hydroelectricity and nothing else. So if we were to get towed up by a storm and the entire power grid gets knocked out, that running water is unaffected 100%. Completely unaffected. But we all know that's not true. We all know that electricity will affect how that component works, how that element of running water works, whether we like it or not. And if you want to go even deeper, think about the people who maybe won't be able to make it to that plant to make it operate in the first place if they run into an emergency in which the power is out and for some reason they have a special circumstance in which they just need it. Especially, let's take it as deep as we can go. An electric car. How can you refuel it if it runs on electricity? And let's say for some reason electricity has been gone long enough to where you cannot operate your vehicle. And then you have to rely on your electric vehicle, specifically electric, to make it to your place of work, to this treatment plant. And let's say that you don't have the ability of just phoning someone up to help you get there, no matter how much of an essential worker you are. Let's just say that most of your squad also opts for modernizing and using electric vehicles. Fortunately, that's not what's most common yet, but since you're so insistent that electricity is simply not as important, then let me tell you how we as a society are evolving to where electricity is just as important as something like water. And I myself would have never thought that I would be saying that. And I think that it's something that I disagree with. I don't think that we should need, first of all, internet and electricity so much. Especially consider how old that video is. It's not an all-encompassing topic. I just feel like we feel compelled to try to compete and compare one thing with another. Like, okay, this one utility is more important than the other. If I were to be honest, if I have gas, I think that would be slightly more useful than having electricity, because at least with gas, I know how to cook using a gas stove and it doesn't rely on electricity. It could also be a little dangerous depending on the weather. If I think about running water, how helpful is running water for me if I don't have a heater for it, and if I don't have a way to ensure that it is safe. Let's just assume that because I'm losing power, the water coming out of the faucet is also going to be tainted because the plant that treats it is also down. To go as deep as we can with the matter of electricity, you're only going to want to limit it to just domestically, because I'm affected as a resident when the electricity is out. Is usually just one little grid. It's not like the entire grid fails. Does anybody remember that blackout that we had? What year was it? Was it the year 2004? Anyway, somewhere up north, like the areas of New York, all the way up to Canada. Y'all lost power for a good while, and a lot of shit that could go wrong went wrong during that day. Have you forgotten about that? That's why I don't go around trying to talk about one thing while trying to diminish the value of another thing. What I ended up responding to this person was, as a city resident reliant on the public water supply, thank God the process of potable water coming out of a faucet at absolutely no point, especially during filtration, is electricity a necessary component for that to operate like we expect, like water treatment. So yeah, you guys, the whole reason why I make this topic is because, again, my intention is never to really express one thing over the other. The only time I can say I can do that is if I'm trying to ultimately debate it, like, oh, water versus electricity, which one makes me happier? And which one do I feel like I can get by with the most or the least? But I really think that there are more solutions nowadays to having water than not having electricity. Because at least water, I could just go out, buy it in bulk, unless there's a natural disaster impeding it. But nowadays, I really think that kind of like hot weather and cold weather, there are solutions for cold weather, but sometimes I feel like there aren't as many solutions for hot weather. In this case, I would say that me having water is more solvable than not having electricity. Yeah, you guys, I thought I would share that and hear what you guys have to say, because I honestly, sincerely, I don't care, but I think it's interesting regardless, because maybe one of you also share thoughts like that, and I cannot say I aspire to thinking like you, but at least I want to understand how you arrive at that conclusion, because this just feels like you try to nullify one utility over another, and I think that's stupid.